What's Your Reel is a podcast where we interview with industry-leading creatives to learn their story about who they are, how they got there, and where they want to go. We invite you to join us on the journey as we roll their reel to find how these creatives are finding their way to success.
So today we're sitting down with Mel Allen. This is the first time that we met him. Andy was connected to him. It was the first time that I met him. And what an interesting guy. He is a voice talent, doing voiceovers, but also a lot of time in radio and all that sort of stuff. We talked about his story. We talked about, how he goes about life and making life better and prioritizing things and just all sorts of stuff. It kind of went all over the place. It was just a great conversation. It was an awesome time getting to know him. But also we learned a lot.
No matter what you do in the creative industry, whether you're in graphic design, video, photo, music, voice, radio, this podcast you will learn something from. Mel is a really interesting guy. He's got a really great history full of all kinds of experiences, and you're gonna really like it. So I'd encourage you to enjoy the conversation. And with that, we welcome Mel Allen to the show. So normally we kick off just with my little introduction, as you saw on the videos.
Yep.
To set the stage and get us into the mode. But we thought we'd have you give it a try.
All right. So let me see if I can set this up properly.
Yeah, with your best voice, do it however you think is right.
What's Your Reel is a podcast where we interview with industry-leading creatives to learn their story about who they are, how they got there, and where they want to go. We invite you to join us on the journey as we roll their reel and learn about how these creatives are finding their way to success.
Nice.
You were definitely a voice actor.
So, yeah.
Is that how you would classify yourself? Is that the title?
Some people say actor. I usually bounce between either artist or talent.
Okay.
And I like the artist because I get involved sometimes with the creative. So I don't just sit there and be like, oh, words are coming to me. If there's something off with it, I will send suggestions to the clients that are open to it. And you learn, as you go, who might be open to it, who might not be open to it. Not everybody wants feedback. So
Interesting. Yeah.
Don't critique
just
my
like
copy.
just do your job, monkey, and and we'll just leave it at that. So
Yeah, we love it. Well, hey, how long have you been doing this?
so long. I started very poorly doing voiceover when I was 17. So was having a conversation with some friends about music, and we got grabbed by one of the camp counselors who happened to be the general manager at the radio station. He's like, hey, you guys want to continue this conversation on the radio? Gave us this cheesy little thing. And we were like, yeah, that sounds really cool. So yeah, a week later, I was learning how to be on the radio and just was scared to death and sounded awful. But after doing it for the summer, at the end of the summer, he was like, hey, can you do me a favor and record all of the underwriting that we have at the radio station, all of the PSAs we have, and the legal IDs? And I said, here's the deal. You show me how to use all the equipment so I can do it myself, and I will do it. So, because I was kind of like, this is a dream come true. And, I didn't want any money. I wanted to know how to do it so I could keep on doing it. And it was just horrible. So I was 17 years old. I didn't know what I was doing at all. Obviously I listened to some TV and radio, but I totally shifted my perspective because I just started calling all of my friends out of state. And I said, hey, can you mail me tapes of just the radio station, record your local radio station and send me the tapes. And so what I was doing is I was fast forwarding between all the songs and listening to the commercials. And I'm like, okay, that one's really cool. Like, I really like how that one was done. And so I would write down the copy. I would write down the script from it. And then I would try to emulate that person. Because my voice dropped actually to not, as round as it is, but it dropped when I was 11, 12 years old. And I didn't know how to use it. And then I found this and I was like, wow, I can totally do this. I can use my voice for that. And so I just kind of started teaching myself how to do that. And radio was there to teach me. So
here's why I'm very excited about this. I know nothing about what you do.
Oh, wow.
Meaning like everyone we've talked to has either been motion graphics, graphic design, film, photo, couple music dudes, which, you know, I've played drums, if you want to call that music, forever. But I'm very excited to learn about something new today. But I would love to go back to the beginning.
All right.
And let's start with, where'd you grow up? Have you been a Vermonter this whole time?
Yeah. So I grew up in Richmond, Vermont. And, you know, I actually say Vermont, which is funny. To a lot of people, you know, they're like, there's a T in there. But yeah, I'm a local boy. And that was one of the challenges, you know, with actually like doing this, was that, you know, there's no, you know, there weren't any, at least at the time, schools for this and you know, doing it. But I love the state. I go visit other places and I always come back. So yeah, I've never actually lived anywhere other than, you know, 2-3 months anywhere else. I always come back here.
That was kind of part of the motivation for this podcast as well, is we wanted to show that like the creative arts industry doesn't have to happen in Nashville or California.
No.
You can do it anywheres, and there's a lot of interesting people in the Northeast.
Yeah, there's so many
Like us.
creative people that I've met. I mean, you know, running across to you guys, you know, I know obviously that you're a creative person hiding under, you know, a person who is, you know, working the fields and working the farms, then, you know, and then seeing what you're doing here. And that's just, I mean, just nicking the surface. There are people who are, you know, very, very well-established voiceover artists who are living here in this state, and you wouldn't know it. The most interesting man in the world lives in Vermont.
That's right.
So
I have heard that.
yeah. And, you know, and by choice, like he was just like, I guess, you know, found the place and fell in love, as we all do, which is why we stay here. 'Cause this quality of life, just, I haven't found it anywhere other than maybe the Virgin Islands was kind of, you know, runner up, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've been blessed in the sense of I've seen a lot of the country, like, for various reasons, my dad can't fly, and all of my family's on the West Coast. So we've driven to California and back like 4 different times, and tried to take a semi-different route. And it's like, I wouldn't want to live anywhere but here.
Yeah.
I mean, I just love it. I love the pace. I love the people. I love I mean, I'm a mountain guy, so I love the mountains.
Yeah.
So it's all good. And I always find it interesting to talk to people about, you know, how they're doing it here. Right. So anyway, when you were growing up in school and stuff, I don't really know where that starts for you. But you were saying there weren't any like classes or schools or anything like that.
Yeah.
So where do you even start?
Well, the funny start for me was actually that I stuttered, I stammered, and I had a lisp. And that's not at all, you know, I tell people all the time, that's not how you expect a voiceover story to start.
Right.
But the benefit to that was that my teachers and my parents were concerned. And so I went to speech therapy. And so I learned how to breathe, and I learned how to talk, and I learned how to think, and basically pause whenever my mouth is about to do something that it's not supposed to do. And it ended up just working out really well that was exactly what I needed, because I mumbled a lot because my voice was really deep and I had this tiny body that really couldn't make all of the air, but I learned how to breathe better, and I learned how to stop the stammering and stuttering and lisping. And it just gave me the skills that I needed to really think about my speech in a very different way than other people do. Think about where, you know, I was reading aloud to the kids who were in my mom's home daycare, and they would ask me to read them stories all the time. So it'd be like, oh, I can practice what I'm supposed to be doing with these kids who aren't going to really, you know, I thought weren't going to judge me, but turns out kids are actually can be brutal. But it was a great audience because they, like, you know, you'd get that instant feedback, and, you know, it just set me up in a way that, you know, it was almost like I feel sometimes like I was born to do this. And it's one of those things that I keep coming back to. There was a period in my life, actually, I lost my voice through an injury to my throat. And for about 6 months, I very, and this is only probably less than a decade ago. And the whole time that I was healing, it took me about 2 years to be back to where I could even think about doing this again. All I could think about was how much I wanted to do that one thing, and not in I want to do it because I can't. It was like, this is my calling. I'm not doing my calling, and I'm very sad about that. And, if I ever get that ability back, I'm diving in all the way. And, because I used to do it part-time on the side as a thing. And so, it was just fantastic to be able to have that ability and opportunity. And, and I just kind of knew when I was getting these opportunities as a kid that it was something that was scary, but I was like, I think it's scary in the good way.
It was exciting.
I was like, it's just very exciting and thrilling. There's a lot of the unknown, but I was like, I think I'm supposed to keep going in this direction. And I'm so glad I did.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you feel that this is your calling.
Mm-hmm.
Elaborate a little bit. So what does it mean? What does that calling mean or look like?
It's,
how do you know when something is your calling?
I've done a lot of jobs. I'll just say that I did a lot of, self-exploration. The first time I got laid off, I think I was maybe 19 or 20. And my boss, when he was laying me off, I was in a kitchen and I was a prep cook and I worked part-time in radio. And he said to me, I'm letting you go. Please don't tell anybody else. The business is failing. And he's like, I'm letting you go first because you are the person who shouldn't be here. He's like, when you look around the kitchen, he's like, this is all we can do. And he's like, there's way more going on in your head. This isn't the place where you belong. Get out and never, ever come back into a kitchen again unless you're there to thank the chef for the amazing meal.
Huh.
And, I'm crying because I'm as I'm seeing it, I'm being fired.
Right.
But he was right. So I actually went to 2 temp agencies and I just had jobs all the time. And, I found myself working in a car dealership. I found myself working for places like Vermont Teddy Bear Company, Lake Champlain Chocolates, doing all kinds of different jobs at all these places. And it was this really unique thing because I found that I was able to do all of them very well, but none of them were very fulfilling. So when I just happened to decide I was going to go on a spring break trip, I met some people from the local radio station that had put this on. They got discount tickets, and so they were on it. And my girlfriend, right out of the gate, like literally, we're at the gate waiting to get on the plane, and she's like, "We were in college radio," and she's like, "Well, him a lot more than me." And she's like, "Tell him, honey." And I was like, "Yeah, we did it." like you guys, you're pros. You don't need to hear all about this. And they were like, "Yeah, okay." And they ran away. But then on the trip, we kept bumping into each other and actually had conversations. And they were like, "You need to come in for an interview." And I was like, thinking like that little bit of stuff that I did when I was 17, which by the way, I actually got back there the next summer and I redid all of it. They were like, "We have people in our building who don't know how to do that." And I was like, "Oh, so I have skills."
Like just run the tech and the
just run all of the machine. They didn't know how to do all of the stuff from point A to point B. So in 1994, that was when I got first, hired professionally in radio at 95 XXX, which was that was the really great station, if you were a kid to work at that time. And so, I go in for an interview thinking, this isn't going to lead to anything. And, 2 days later, I'm in the production studio with pretty similar equipment to what I had in college. And they're like, "Here, do all of this stuff." And so an hour and a half later, I was like, "Okay, I'm done." And they're like, "No, you can't be." And I was like, "Yeah, it's all in there, So they listened to everything and they were like, "Wow, that's so cool." And so I just, it was just one of those things. Like it's not like it's easy because it's, it takes a lot of work. But it just, it came more naturally to me and it just felt so fulfilling to be creating in that kind of way. even though when I was starting doing it, none of it was my own. And so about 3 months, 6 months in, they finally were like, okay, well, Chittenden Bank needs some tags for some of their local spots. So go do all that. And they were thinking like it's the bottom of the barrel job. And I was just psyched because here I am, like my voice now is going out not only over this radio station, but we were making copies and sending them to the other radio stations. So all of a sudden I'm literally hearing myself on radio stations all over the state. Like, and it's just a 10-second, like Chittenden Bank, has a special on whatever savings accounts, get a blanket if you open up your checking account by October 31st,
Yeah, right.
And I'm like, that's me,
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, it was just one of those kind of things that was so fulfilling, which was good because the pay, for radio but back at that time was not so great. But then 2 years later or so, through radio, I met a person, and she and I only worked together, I think like 3 or 4 different times, but she had me record a couple of things for a client's commercial, and I didn't think anything of it. And she called me up and she's like, hey, are you still, like in the area? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, cool. I've got somebody who wants to do a commercial and they'll pay you $20. I was psyched. This was 1996. And I'm like, $20 in my pocket, cash. Like, I'll do it, And, again, like I had no idea what was ahead of me. I had no idea this was a thing. And so that was for WCAX. And then for 12 years, I ended up working for that client, recording stuff for them. And I mean, they helped me buy Christmas presents, and, they helped me buy groceries, over the years. Like it was cool when I realized, I'm like, wow, like I've actually got legit money, more than what I'm getting in my paycheck, that I just did from doing something that I actually just love. And that I love it because it's helpful in a way. Here I am speaking for people who just either aren't good at it or don't get any joy. All they get is fear. Right. So, I will reveal a little bit about myself. I get a lot of anxiety before I go and step in front of a microphone. So I was ready to come here over an hour before I was supposed to be here because I'm like, I'm going to be in front of somebody else's microphone. And so I'm nervous. Right.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that people are like, you've been doing this since you were a kid.
There was some resistance for you to put on the headphones.
Yeah. Well, I was like, oh, this is going into work mode, so, but once I'm in it, it's like all of that nervousness, all of that anxiety, it just turns into this great energy, and it just carries me, and it carries me, and it carries me, and it pushes me. And nothing else gives me that feeling. Nothing else that I've ever done makes me feel like that. I think the closest second to that is raising kids and like just seeing, the payoff. Like it's like, and some people are like, the greatest moment of my life was having a kid. I'm like, and,
yeah, but what else?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
So yeah, it's, it's pretty amazing when I get that kind of a payoff. But I also know that like, I'm not the only one who gets that. Like, the people that I work with, the clients that I work with, sometimes they're just like thanking me profusely. And I'm like, no, it's cool. Like it only took me 20 minutes. It's totally fine. It's not like I had to go lift something and carry it up that hill for you. So to me, it's a great way of using my time, using my energy, and using my effort to help other people and do something that brings me a lot of joy.
Yeah. So the anxiety thing is actually interesting to me. So a big part of my story is dealing with anxiety and all that stuff. And I, long story short, where I'm at now is I'm able to use, I think everybody needs some anxiety if they ever expect to get anything done.
Right.
And I just want to talk about it for a minute because I've learned to use that anxious feeling that we may get to be productive.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think it's really helpful for people coming up, because anxiety is a real thing.
It sure is.
And it
yeah.
sounds like you've been able to use that as a benefit.
Yeah, it's
almost.
fuel. You know,
Yeah.
like that's how I think of it. Is it's fuel, and if it wasn't important, why would I be anxious about it? Right. So like, you know, if it's just driving down to the store, and if I was anxious about that, well, I'd be like, okay, maybe I need to look into that a little bit more.
Yeah, right.
You know,
right.
and I feel for people who legitimately do have that kind of a thing. But you know, my anxiety, you know, and again, it shifts once, you know, like I said, you know, like I put the headphones on, sat in front of the microphone, and it's game on. And so to just have that anxiety shift like that for me, and like you're saying, just work and you know, be fuel and get things done. It's such a transformation, and I'm so glad that I didn't listen to that fear in, you know, my head that was literally like when I first started talking in front of a microphone way back when. I felt like I couldn't talk. I couldn't get air. And it was a great thing because I could recall back to the speech pathology and be like, well, this is the same kind of thing. Like, my mouth is trying to do something other than what I want it to do. I just need to calm down. I need to take a breath. I need to think about where it is that I'm going, you know, what words I want to use, and just use them and get it out. And so it just kind of came, and you know, not naturally, because there was that whole moment of me convincing myself I had to do it. But it worked, and it just kept working. And, you know, I remember the first time that I was, hired by a radio station, cause that's, you know, a lot of my background being in radio, being at a live event where I'm talking in front of, you know, hundreds of people, you know, pushing some beer product or, you know, or something. And, you know, sometimes you'd have less than friendly crowds who were there. And just kind of learning how to read those situations and read those crowds. Also figuring out where things were turning dangerous. That was kind of interesting to be like, hey, you guys, you just want a shirt, you know, and
to distract them.
Just distract these guys long enough in a crowd, because you can read the crowd that whatever was about to happen didn't. You know, the energy just stopped, shifted, and, you know, it's like, that's a pretty cool ability that I don't get to use as much in voiceover, but,
Right.
you know, to be able to do that, you know, numerous times in the past was also just, it's kind of a cool, you know, branch off of what I was able to do. But, you know, radio put me in a lot of situations where I literally didn't know what I was going to be doing, you know, in an hour.
Right.
And so again, like, it just, you know, I think that gives a person, you know, being open and being willing to do that in your life, you know, where there's anxiety, not letting the fear, you know, control you, and, you know, realizing that, you know, the fear is there, you know, and why we have fear is to, you know, just alert our brain, alerting us that there's a situation that's uncomfortable or dangerous, or, you know, putting us out of our element. And every time I go to some creative workshop, you know, they're always like, well, you know, step out of your box. And I'm like, I live outside of that box. Like, I don't, you know,
everything I do is not in that box.
Yeah. Like, you know, like, it's great when I can occasionally go in there and visit for a little while, but I don't live in there, you know? And I think that's one of the other things that I really like about being in the creative sphere is that, you know, I took a picture of my dog the other day and posted it on social media because something just sparked that idea. And it literally, you know, for me, it feels like it went viral. You know, it was only like, you know,
It was a good picture.
it was a good picture. Yeah. I mean, it was like, you know, me holding a microphone, and I had my headphones on my dog, and actually similar to the ones I'm wearing now. And, you know, and I actually had my 7-year-old help, you know, set the camera up too, because I'm like, oh, you got to be involved in this.
There you go.
You know, teaching them those lessons too. And it was just fun, you know, and it was a great time. And it was something to do where it wasn't taking a picture of me, you know, which is just, you know, trying to be creative in that way. But
Yeah. You said your first sort of job, quote unquote job like this, you were 17. Is that what you said?
Yeah, well, the first time I got behind a microphone, I was like 17.
Okay, so that's high school.
WJSC. That was high school. Yeah.
So in high school, you're kind of like, I'm really interested to like how do you get here? I mean, how do you like go from I'm learning how to talk correctly, to I'm going to sit behind a microphone and do this?
It was literally the fact that I knew how to use the tools, and I got the job at the radio station, and just soon enough it was. I started writing the commercials after I started producing them. And I did, like I said, I was doing like those tags that were, like 5 and 10 seconds at the end of commercials. And then they weren't giving me a lot of work at that radio station. So what I actually did is I made a fake, what's called an air check tape. So, and an air check tape is basically your resume in radio. And so when you push the microphone button, it starts recording. So it'll be the tail of a song, and then the intro of the next song, the period while you're talking, you're holding down that microphone. And I'd never been on the air. I'd never been on the radio, but I was like, I kind of want to do more of this. And all of the good jobs, they're like saying, send your air check tape, resume, and a couple production samples to this address. Because back then everything was by tape. So, but I didn't have one. So I had all the access to the production tools. So I went in after hours a couple of times, made myself a fake air check tape, sent it off to a company who was looking for an engineer. And so all of a sudden I'm engineering Imus in the morning. And they also need me to do the news, the weather, and a couple of other things. And again, I was pretty bad, but they were like, well, it's 5 o'clock in the morning, and by the time you get warmed up, things aren't going that bad. So, so I learned how to do the sports and the weather and, and again, talk on the air. And so that was kind of unfulfilling, in a way. And that company actually laid me off because they were getting ready to sell that radio station. And I went back to the group that owns 95 XXX, and they were like, well, now you've been on the radio, so we're actually going to put you on, as like a full-time person on air.
Huh.
And so it was pretty cool that I left for this other job that was actually not nearly as good. The production equipment wasn't, very good. And I wasn't very satisfied with what I was doing. So I went back there, doubled the amount of what I was doing that I wanted to do. They paid me more, which was great. And I just really, that's when I really started falling in love with being behind a microphone, and really, and it was right after that I got that first voiceover job for the $20. And so, that was 1996. And by 2006, I had my own studio in my home.
Nice.
So, so 10 years later, here I am, like one of the few people that I knew of. Like I didn't know anybody other than, a couple of drummers and, some other people who had any studio equipment in their home, and they were all musicians. So like I was the only one who, and it was awful. I mean, it was, it was boxes stuffed with pillows that were stacked on a desk all around a microphone.
I love it.
Yeah, it was just like, I'm working for a multinational company from this, like my big client was a multinational company, and I was also doing stuff for, local hospitals and local banks, and started hiring myself out to, to other people in other states. And it was just kind of crazy, like, to think back and how I made these leaps and just was like, sure, I'm in. Like, you're offering me this much, and I was like, pay me half up front, and I ran to the store and bought equipment. So, I'm like, like knowing that I could get it done, knowing that I had the skills that I'd learned in these other jobs, that I could do it if I had, and trying not to be like the fool who goes out there and buys like the whole entire studio, just to do like this one thing. I just bought kind of what I needed. And I made some choices that I had to replace stuff along the way. But, the good thing was that it wasn't my money when I was, that I was doing it with, which was the really nice part about it, is that all of this money that came in from voiceover was aside from, I would have like a job to pay like my rent and buy
Right,
groceries. And then the voiceover stuff was just like gravy, you know? So it was really pretty cool to be able to
Funding
to do
the
that.
side projects.
Yeah. Fun. It was self-funding and, you know, very incredibly rewarding, you know?
And you faked it. You faked it.
Yeah.
You faked it into a role, you know, a role that moved you forward. Maybe it wasn't that great, but it allowed you a new opportunity to get back to Triple X.
Yeah. And I mean, I just kept learning, you know, on my own. I just kept kind of scrapping it out. And, you know, I would go into the studio. Sometimes I'd have a job that was due, you know, like 2-3 days. I'd go after 10 o'clock when I knew like nobody was there, you know, except the overnight people. And they were just happy to have somebody in the building.
Hey, company.
There you go.
I couldn't
And I would
see
get
your-
it done.
Oh, I said ask about college. You went to college.
I did. I didn't finish. Funny enough. Yeah. So, went to college at Johnson State. So, you know, I continued there working, you know, my work study was at the radio, and I ended up actually kind of living there because I was above the radio station. So, you know, by the time I left college, I actually had a pretty good understanding of how all the equipment worked. People have been like, "Oh, you should be an engineer." And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not the engineer.
Like an audio engineer.
Yeah. You know, or, you know, station, you know, like transmitter kind of engineer. I'm like, no, that's definitely not my calling. You know, I learned a lot of my own IT skills. You know, I'm my own IT department, and I did IT, you know, as one of my jobs, you know, again, to support my voiceover habit, I guess. But,
Yeah.
so, but yeah, I did go to college.
Why didn't you finish?
Actually, when I left, I had intended to go back, and there were a couple of reasons. One of them was that the professors for some of the courses that I had left in some big fiasco that happened with the changing of presidents at Johnson State College back in the early 90s. And so they hired some people who weren't accredited. And so I was like, well, I'm just going to defer till the next semester. And then by the next semester, I found out that I had a child on the way. And I said, well, you know what? I'm going to not go to college, and, you know, I'm going to make sure that she's supported and you know, kind of get back there someday. And I just never did. And I think it's because I just kind of kept teaching myself stuff. You know, I didn't feel like I was lacking for knowledge, and the level of experience that I had in a lot of areas helped me to get a lot of other jobs. So I didn't ever feel like, you know, until just before I basically said, you know what, I'm doing full-time voiceover. I'm not, you know, I'm not really working for anybody else again. I'm working with people, but, you know, I'm not going to really work for people again. So, you know, that collaboration is where I'm at now. So,
Yeah. Do you feel like for what you do, you need college?
I didn't. I mean, you know, and it's funny because I learned all of these skills at college, but I learned them. I started learning all of them while I was a high schooler. So, you know, I think it's really just being open when somebody gives you an opportunity, thanking them and grabbing it. You know, I think that's way more important, or it was at that time for me, than college was. I would be on a very different path had I continued with college. I'm very glad that I went and for what I did, but most of the classes that I took and that I enjoyed actually weren't even in the major that I was going for, because I was like, well, I'm going to get all of the requirements out of the way. And so in 3 semesters, I took a whole bunch of like English classes, because I'm like, I'm just going to get the boring stuff out of the way. And that ended up actually just completely setting me up for all the creative writing that, you know, I did. Like, I was doing a lot of long form stuff, and then, you know, turns out you can tell a really amazing story in 30 or 60 seconds, and it might also help somebody sell something. So, you know, that was, you know, copywriting for me was a great way to use that. And I mean, I have notebooks that are just filled and filled and filled and filled with pages of stuff where I'd remember some cool story, you know, about like some teacher that I had, or, you know, the shop owner up the road, and how they solved a problem. And I'd write that story down, and I'd have somebody come up to me, being like, oh, we need to do this commercial, and, here's the client, and here's kind of like the premise. And I'd be like, but we don't really have all the copy. And I'm like, cool. Like, let me call the client, and, I'll bounce around some stuff with them and see if I can finish that up. And every time it would like spark something, and I would borrow from one of these stories that I'd written down and just kind of modify it to them. Like, maybe it's not that, pork roast that's replacing the one that the dog got a hold of, it's a truck that you're swapping in there, but the story. And then, they go, oh yeah, like that reminds me of whatever. And they'd fill in all the rest of the details, and boom, here we have like this great story, solves a problem, and also, mentions their product in it, but not in a way that's just kind of like an in your face, like Sunday, monster truck, sales pitch. And so it's like, it's one of those ones, as I like to say, like, you don't realize that you're being sold something until you've bought it. Right. Like, you're 30 seconds into a 60-second commercial, and you realize, this is a commercial for that new, new widget that's on sale. And oh my gosh, like I had that situation. I need that now, and once you make somebody in their head say or think, I need that now, like my job was done,
Story branding.
So, yeah. And so that was pretty cool that college allowed me the skills to be able to do that. But I went to college, to be an art teacher. So,
oh, no way.
Yeah. So,
see, that's an interesting detail.
Yeah. So, I was doing, art education and, psychology, as a minor. So, and my other thought was like, well, if the art teaching didn't work out, then maybe I could, do some sort of an art therapy or, something like that, but I always knew that, I had an affinity for working with kids. And I think a lot of that came from the fact that I grew up, in this home daycare situation. My first clients, were little kids who were sitting there. I was reading the stories to, doing, voices for, Winnie the Pooh or Tigger, back when my, younger voice could handle that kind of range, between, all of these different, Goofy and Mickey and, things like that. If we were reading a story, I'd try to do, all the voices, and, you get that feedback from the kids is, you didn't do that really good. And I'd be like, well, let me try again,
Did they give you that feedback, or did you ask for it?
Oh no, they gave it very willingly.
That's not the right voice.
They're like, Nick, he doesn't sound like that at all. And I'd be like, you're right. Like, I didn't try very hard.
I'm working on it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, you've done. Okay, so you've done all sorts of stuff. That's what I'm gathering from that. So this is full time.
Yeah. I mean, I still do part-time work for some radio stations in addition to the voiceover work, and that gets me out in the world. It gets me connecting with other people. But the reality is that instead of having a schedule that I'm sent and it's like, here's when you're working. They're always like, hey, can you work these? And I'd be like, yeah, like these are going to be a problem. I'm busy, I've got some other appointments those days, but it's really nice that, it's very much the opposite, where I really wrapped my entire life around radio and it gave me nothing back. And now, I fill in, some of those gaps that work out for me with radio, which definitely, helped give me a lot of the skills for this. But yeah, I do, full time. I'm on social media all the time. The Real Voicemail, at The Real Voicemail, if you need to find me.
I know we forgot your poster. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's all right. That's all right. So
he brought us some stickers.
I did give you some stickers.
Great.
Yes, you got some swag. So
yeah, right on.
I want to talk about the full time. Were you ever full time radio or part time on a schedule?
Oh, I was full time for a long time. Yeah, I was full time doing middays back in, gosh, I want to say it was, I think my first full time was in 1996 when I was doing the Imus in the Morning show. So that was my first full time radio job. I'd have to get there, I'm going to say it was like 4:45 in the morning. And so, I'd be gone a little later in the afternoon. And then I was doing, I left there. That was Champ 101.3 back shortly after they first started. So I left there to go to WVMT, and I was doing middays for a long time, a couple of years, I'm going to say at least. For me back then, it was, it seemed like it was a long time. And then I did, let's see, the next full-time job I had in radio, I think I was a producer of Corman the Coach for 2.5 years. And then I was the midday person at Champ for another stretch of time. I can't remember exactly. So, and then I went to another radio group. I was a production director when I first started, I was 9 different stations. And then it ended up being, I was the acting production director for 5 more. So I ended up doing basically production director for 13 different radio stations. And that was a lot of times that I was the only one in the building, and I'd be like, well, I got to do a couple of different voices because here's 2 people having a conversation in this commercial, and I'm the only one here, and this has to be playing tomorrow. And so
that's a special skill.
Yeah, creativity definitely abounds, and that's one thing that the injury that I had to my throat took some of that range out. But the good thing is that it just allowed me to focus on being me. So
interesting.
It actually, I don't see it as a detractor because as I say to people, I spent the first half of my voiceover career trying to be somebody else. And ever since then, I've just been trying to be me. And it's one of those things when you get behind a microphone, there's this tendency for people to pretend to be, something else, or, like I'm pretending to be an authority. I'm pretending to be informed. But I really just want to sound like a human on the other side of the line. And, I do something that a lot of male, they call me an announcer type voiceover a lot, and just because of my range, but I answer phone calls for companies where sometimes people are calling them in emergencies because I really try to get that, very conversational tone and just kind of be friendly and reassuring and, kind of guide people through getting stuff done. And, again, I'm not talking directly to any of those people, but in my mind, I try to imagine somebody like my mom, who she,
your biggest fan,
right? Yeah. She has a warning come up on, Windows, and she calls me being like, I did something illegal, and I'm like, it's okay. We'll get through this, and so knowing that, I can be the person who's reassuring. I've done English as a second language classes where you have to very, very, very slowly, and very clearly enunciate everything. And it's actually, that was probably one of the most challenging voiceover jobs I've done, because you really, really, really have to think about how it is, because you're teaching somebody who they don't know what our language is supposed to sound like.
You want to teach them right.
Yeah. You want to do it right. And sometimes, the person that you're working with, the person you're sending your work to, might not know it either. Right. So so that's been one of the nice things, is they'll send me copies sometimes, and I'm like, just so you know, I recorded it this way, but you probably want to use the second take. That's actually the proper English that's on there. And again, I owe some of that to my English classes at college.
Yeah, there you go.
Knowing knowing the
you
grammar.
wrote that wrong.
Yeah. So it's good.
Oh, that's really interesting. How do you, so I'm wondering, one, how you got that gig, but also, is this so you're doing recordings for people in a classroom to listen to, or is this an online English as a second language?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a classroom type situation. They've all got their headphones on, and they're all listening, to the lesson. I mean, now today it's probably, there's a computer involved in there that's listening for them to repeat it back. But the funny thing was that the first couple of stories that I started doing for them were old Disney stories. And I'm like, oh my God, I feel like I'm sitting in front of, the kids again, reading like I know the story. I don't even need to read the script.
Yeah, right. Oh my gosh. That's super interesting. So how much, if at all, do you think while you're like right now when you're doing a voiceover or whatever, do you still consciously think about oh, my mouth wants to do this, but I need to tell it to do this, and like the stuff that you learned when you were a kid?
Oh gosh, yeah, all the time. I mean, while I'm sitting here, again, sometimes if I pause for a moment, it's because my tongue wants to flip a little bit. It wants to skip, make a couple of sounds, and I'm just like, nope, we're not going to do that. There have been a couple of times when it happened, and it happened really, really bad at a couple of jobs, mainly when I wasn't able to prepare for it. And that's something else that, I think that anxiety that, that happens, if it hits while I'm doing the job, there's no, it's going to be bad. Like, so me knowing a little bit in advance, knowing that something's coming. And in voiceover, everything is basically audition based, or, you're working with people to try to figure out when you can do it, get that schedule going. And so now I always have that knowledge ahead of time, even if it's 5 minutes, ahead of time, I know it. But there was one time at the Burlington Town Center, and I was asked if I could help load up some gear and bring it over there. They're doing some sort of a fashion show. And I get there, and the salesperson from the radio station is like, "Oh, good, you're here." Like, I was so worried. I didn't know they were sending you over. And I was like, "Oh no, I was in the middle of waiting for a couple of things. So it's no problem for me to bring the gear over for you." And I was like, "So do you need help packing it back into the truck when this is done?" And she's like, "What are you talking about?" And I'm like, "Well, what are you talking about?"
Oh boy.
And she's like, "We need an announcer for this." And I'm like, I haven't even eaten today. Like, I'm like, I need to go. And so, all of a sudden I'm, behind a microphone with words I've never seen before, which, it happens.
Unprepared.
But utterly unprepared for this. I hadn't eaten, I hadn't had anything to drink, and as you can see, I mean, I have my water next to me. I always I didn't bring water with me because I was like, I'm going right back to the station and picking up food along the way. And it's like this fashion show. There all of a sudden tons of people in this, whole area in the mall. And I'm, doing the announcing for it. And it just was completely a cluster. And my mouth just decided that there was no way I was going to say Burlington. It was always going to be Burlington. And so every time I started to say Burlington Town Center, which
it's got an extra T there, which starts.
I just pulled the microphone away from my mouth until it stopped. And, and I just carried on and, just made it work the best I could in the situation, what.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, you
don't blame you.
It's still, it's much less.
Sure.
The longer you go, I think the more control I have over it. But if I'm tired or if I'm underprepared or, hungry, like all of these kinds of things can make it want to come out, rear its ugly head. But it's never done it in a job because, again, I'm always in those situations prepared. So
even for like live radio, you're at least like mentally in the game before you get there.
Right. Yeah. And it's one of the nice things about living where I live is that, it takes about 32 minutes from my driveway to theirs,
Yeah, right.
on average. And that's plenty of time for me to, work through everything, that I want to talk about on my show. And I'll be like, talking to my phone and, leaving myself, reminders and things about things I want to talk about on the way.
Do you do any like I work with a lot of music people. Mm-hmm. So this is where this question is coming from. But do you do any vocal exercises or anything like that before you go on?
Yeah. I mean, I've got the, red leather, yellow leather, red leather, yellow leather, red leather, yellow leather. It's just, those kinds of things, tongue twisters that I will say. But a lot of times it's based upon the script.
We both
I was just trying to do it. It was really hard.
Yeah. My kids will give me like, tongue twisters and be like, "Can you say?" And I'll be like, "Peter Piper picked, I'm not ready. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. How many pickled peppers did Peter Piper pick?" And, things like that.
Wow.
Where, or they'll be like, "Say that 10 times fast." And I'll be like, "Okay." And I'll, say it 10 times fast.
Challenge
and,
accepted.
Yeah. And I'll be like, "How many times can you do?" And they'll be like, the third time. And,
yeah, right.
but it's, because I'm kind of always living I think in that world. I go on vacation. I've got a suitcase with equipment that I take with me. It's my wife thinks it's weird, and she's finally used to the fact that like, even if I don't use it, all my clients know that I'm out of town for the next 3 days. I'm just got it in case. Just in case I need it.
We've always got a GoPro and a microphone.
Yeah.
I don't leave a house without a camera. I just can't anymore.
Right. It's the same kind of thing, and like I even have like a little camera that clips onto my phone. I mean, a little microphone that clips onto my phone. So I can at least do better quality than what my phone is capable of doing.
Right. Yeah.
So I literally, one time somebody was like, can you fill in for this guy? And I was like, yeah. And they were like, oh no, like we forgot to ask you to do. But I was like, I have a conflict. So they were like, just record it all. And they were like, we forgot to have you do the weather. And I'm driving home and I just pulled over on the side, clip it in.
Really?
Did the weather forecast and here you go. Wow. And so, that audio ran, on the radio. So I won't tell you which shift, but.
So if you went to school for art, to teach art, you have a visual side to you.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so I want to talk about this a little bit because you were talking about telling stories to sell things, right? And that's what I do for a living, right? Right. So, and I'm so passionate about telling stories visually. Mm-hmm. So how, because you can't have a good video without good audio,
right?
I feel like you can almost have good audio without a good video, but whatever, we don't have to get into that. Yeah. But so how much, when you're trying to tell these stories, whether they be 30 seconds, 60 seconds, or whatever else you do, how much is that a visual process for you?
Completely visual. So whenever I write whenever I write a commercial, whenever I write a spot, if I'm doing anything, I visually think the whole way through. So, a lot of people are like storyboarding. It's already done. Like it's already, the whole process is already done as I'm thinking about it. I can't write words without the visual coming through. So it actually made an easy transition. I swapped from radio for a couple of years working in TV, and I was writer producer for WCAX TV. So great job. Really loved it. Loved the people I worked with. But it was creative and it was fulfilling in a different way. But yeah, it was like I was writing the same scripts. Like there was no change in my scripts. It was just they had the here's what's the video element and here's the audio element. So like the scripts come up in a different, format when you enter everything into the computer. But for me, the whole process was exactly the same. I have to visualize it. I have to see it. It has to make sense from one to the other. The bonus to that was that I actually would strip the audio out of my commercials and use them on the radio, and nobody ever was like, oh, they just stripped the audio out of that commercial and used it for the radio, because the audio stood out on its own because the whole visual made sense as I wrote it. And on the flip side,
right, you didn't need the visual to tell the story. The story was in the audio track.
Right. So it was it just
they weren't
kind
missing anything.
Yeah, neither party felt like they were missing anything, and so that was a cool thing that I actually worked with a couple of clients continuing on after that, doing their scripts and doing their whole helping with that process. Which I guess is called branding, because I would also end up taking pieces out of the script and we would put it in like their print ads, and so it was like that whole visual thinking, and that was something else that also in college I learned how to do. Was that I made a, if you can really call it a literary magazine, but we made and did all the layout and did all the graphics, and I learned a lot about computers through that process back in the days of the Power PC Max. So there you go. Yeah. So, but yeah, no, the visual, it's just there. My logo, that you guys saw on the stickers. I mean, I did that. I've done all of my logos. I think the only thing is that one of my logos I sent to a guy, and I had him do like the liquid metal effect on it many years ago when that was cool.
Nice.
You know, it was
Yeah.
like, I don't have the software. Can you do that for me? And yeah, I've made logos for other people in the past, and you know, sometimes I'll just send it to somebody, you know, as a scan, and just be like, can you clean that up? You know, I don't have Photoshop right now, and just send me back, you know, and I'd be like, here's the Pantone colors, you know, that we're looking for, you know, like all those elements.
Yeah.
Here's the palette.
Yeah, that other people, you know, like they don't think about, and you know, sometimes don't even have any concept of. And I'm always thinking visually, like I don't know, it's part of, I guess, sketching my life as a kid. You know, I was not sitting there strumming along with a guitar.
Yeah.
I was there drawing the pictures, you know, that were the rock poster, you know, for the band, you know.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
What do you like to read?
Oh gosh, I
feel
read
like you're a
lot.
reader. Are you a reader?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I read the news all the time.
The news. What do you mean you read the news?
So I'm still one of those people that uses like RSS feeds for everything. Like I'm reading about craft beer. I'm reading about bands and music.
Gotcha.
But if I sit down and I read a book, right now I'm reading, let's see, a Stephen King novel. I'm reading a book, The Town That Food Saved. It's about Hardwick, Vermont. Let's see, I've got some kind of thriller that I got from Amazon. I can't remember the name of it. There's a horror one that I just finished that a friend of mine, local author, Kristen Dearborn, wrote. And yeah, I'm usually like, I've got 3 or 4 books that are going in different parts of the house I have a Kindle too that you know, they're all just like, I just pick them up and I'm like, oh, what am I reading here? Okay. And I just pick back up.
Yeah. Interesting. Because I wonder how much reading can feed, you know, your mind. I mean, and that sounded, just listen to where I'm going with this. Your mind meaning the way you think about speaking.
Yeah.
And storytelling.
And storytelling and all that
language.
stuff. Yeah, because so I can't read. I mean, I can read, but I'm not a reader.
Yeah.
I watch a lot of movies though, you know, and obviously for what I do, I am dissecting everything about what I'm seeing in a movie, the lighting, the camera movements, the acting, the blocking is what they call it and all that stuff. Are you, when you're reading, like, I would say this way or anything like that?
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely a little bit guilty. Well, when I was back in college, one of the people who made me realize that maybe I actually had some skills. See, I always believed my English teachers when I was in younger days who, you know, were just like, well, that's horrible. And it was, you know, just turns out something they didn't want to read. You know, didn't make it horrible. Just made it something you didn't find enjoyable to read, but it doesn't mean that it wasn't proper. So I learned in college that I had an ability to write, and I literally did not know that before that. I thought all of my stuff was garbage, and it came about when I was having a conversation with my TA, and he's like, I'm actually going to be gone for the next couple of weeks. Can you fill in for me and help other people with their writing? And I'm like, I was like, are we like, are a bunch of people going to jump out and be like, how surprised? Like, you know, we got you. And he's like, no. I'm like, no, I don't believe you. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, no, you really like have a great skill, you know, great talent or something like that. And I'm like, what? And so, yeah, I was like, I was just blown away that, you know, here I thought that everything that I'd written was garbage. But he was one of the people who said to me, if you want to be a better writer, be a better reader. And so he was just like, when you're reading something, don't just read it, you know, like sentence by sentence and paragraph by you know, read in context, read things, you know, that are, there's a style that that writers have, and you'll find that they give characters a style too. And it's really important that the writing might look like it's wrong in that section, but it can be right for that character, or for the purpose of telling that part, that you don't always follow the rules. And that's how you need to think about, writing. And I was like, wow. So basically the opposite of everything that I've ever been taught.
Everything you're taught, right?
And I kind of was always trying to push that envelope because, I kind of, in my mind, I guess I knew that, which was one of the reasons that frustrated my teachers. Like I would talk in, I would write in slang because I'm like, well, that's how people are going to talk to each other. They're not going to be really formal, and address each other with titles,
Right.
if they're just hanging out, and so that was just this kind of eye-opening thing where he really just kind of pulled back that veil of what was, I feel like holding me back in writing. And so I just dove into these writers that I already kind of loved, and I reread a lot of the books that I was like, this is like my favorite book. Like 2001: A Space Odyssey for me was like a life-changing book. On the Road with Jack Kerouac, this is another life-changing book. The Rum Diaries, I think I liked better than Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and I reread both of them, and I'm like, oh my God, like everything he said is exactly true in these books and others where, a conversation between a computer and a person isn't, at least not yet. It's not going to be proper English. It's not going to be. And so it was just a nice way to kind of like, wow, open up my eyes for how I'm looking at this. It's a teacher's job, and it was my teacher's job to teach me how to write properly, for letters and,
right.
When you're reading contracts and things like that, it's really important to be able to
Absolutely.
understand those things, but you might not use that in day to day, and it's a different expectation.
Right. Writing creatively. And I think it's an important lesson for any creative avenue, that when you're being creative, the rules are meant to be broken.
Yeah. Right.
That's when the awesome stuff happens.
Exactly. I mean, if you listened to, the way that people were talking about lighting a stage or lighting a scene, 50 years ago, and you're still doing that exact same thing, like that wouldn't be something that visually is going to entertain your eye. But, if you watch, oh gosh, I'm trying to think of what the name of the movie is. It's like 8 movies in one, and just the lighting is the canvas it
tells a story.
Yeah. And it tells its own story. And and if you're watching that and you're not paying attention to the lighting, you're missing a lot of the scene and a lot of what's going on in there. And, some people call me weird when I'm like, oh my gosh, like, did you see the, but I'm like, I'm okay being the weird guy,
right?
Who's the only one in the room who's seeing this.
Yeah.
Like,
well, so, I'm a film nerd, so I have to talk about this a little bit. It's like the proper way of lighting is something called 3-point lighting, right? You have a key light, you have a fill light, and you have a halo light, you have a backlight, right? But like, if everything was shot like that, it would be just bland.
Yeah.
Right. And something that is really cool that I love in movies is how it's lighting and color tell stories.
Yeah.
Like, so I've seen some movies that the whole thing is color. I mean, it's just like, it's the color of each shot that tells the story.
Yeah.
It's just so interesting. Does any of that carry over into the way, so you do a lot of your own mixing, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I do it's all on my own equipment. I do all of my editing.
Gotcha.
Like I did a job for somebody the other day, and they were like, "Oh, we can edit it if it's cheaper." And I was like, "I'm going to edit it anyway."
Right. Exactly.
I just
let me do it.
Let it go.
Right.
Without editing it somewhat.
Yeah. So when obviously you have a layer of storytelling on how you say things and the voices that you may use, but is there another layer of storytelling on how you mix it?
I would say there used to be. I'm not doing a lot of full mixes anymore.
Gotcha.
I do for a couple of people, but for the most part, I kind of got out of that because I found that I was kind of being fought over what it was that I was trying to make and what I thought sounded good
by clients.
Yeah, by clients. Sometimes it wasn't even the client. It was the the intermediary,
Gotcha.
the person in between. So yeah, when I was doing full production, when I was the production director, I'd be like, that commercial isn't good. Like we can't play that on our radio stations. We're not being paid to remake it, but I can't play that. Like it's garbage. And I would redo the whole thing. I would take their script and it just, I'm picky. I'm a stickler. And, but sometimes, you're doing a mix for a commercial, and I like to, use this kind of reference. It was like the third laser effect was, that's what they're focusing on. I'm like, that's not painting any of the picture. That's not telling any of the story. Why is it, just like out of the 5 laser effects you have in your commercial that you want, which are strung together really well, why that third one? Like, why is that the one that we have to keep going back to and revising, and so I just kind of was like, it lost a little bit of joy for me in that. And so I was like, you know what, I'm just going to do the voice. I'm going to focus on that. There are a couple of those clients that I do it for, and I love doing it. And because they trust me, they give me free rein, and they're just like, do this. Here's the concept, and I know what you're going to do is going to be great. Like, and that's kind of nice to have, that a lot of people don't give that, especially these days. I find that a lot of people really they're it's nitpicking, and it's stuff that it's not part of the story. It's maybe not part of the picture. Right. So I kind of backed away from doing that.
I want to jump back just a second and talk about your book reading. I find in this digital age, it's hard to read books, or it's hard to find time to read books. When do you fit that into your schedule?
So I don't sleep a lot.
Oh, you're one of those, huh?
Yeah. So, one of these weird people, there's some term for it, but I only sleep somewhere between 4 and 6.5 hours a night. So
you are one of those people.
Wow, you are definitely one of those people.
Yeah. So if I sleep more than that, it's usually because I've done something like, if I'm out in the woods and because I live in the woods, if I'm out in the woods and I'm cutting down trees and, and chopping it up for firewood or something like that, I will probably sleep like 7 hours that night.
Right. I can relate.
Yeah, but on the average night, the physical toll on my body is not so great that I need all of that sleep. And so, I wake up in the morning and I'll be like, oh, I've got a little bit of time. I'll read a book. Before bed, I'll read a book. And sometimes just in the middle of the day, I'll be like, oh, again, like nothing on the schedule, and I'll just pick something up and read it for a while. And so it's just kind of like there's all of these moments, and I feel like a lot of the times, and I'm guilty of it myself, I feel like or you feel like you've got to fill it up with something, but sometimes you don't. Sometimes it's just a really gorgeous day, the sun's at the right angle, the birds are chirping outside, and I'm like, I'm going to go read a book out on my porch. And
stop and enjoy it.
Yeah. I'm just going to kind of be in the moment. I'll sit there for a little bit and I'll read a book. And I feel like that's one of the reasons why I stayed in Vermont, and one of the reasons why I live where I live, because I wanted to live with that intention, and I wanted to give my kids that kind of an experience as well. And, be there for them, and be there for me, be there for my wife, and just sometimes just be, as somebody put it once, we're human beings, not human doings. And sometimes the greatest joys in life are when you're just being, and you're not checking things off a list. Because that, while it can be fulfilling in the short term, in the long term, it's called a to-do list, not a to-done list. You're never going to be finished all of those things that you want to get done in a day. So you have to, set it up as, here's my priorities, like before the end of the day. I've got these 3 jobs, and then I want to do this, and then I have to do this, and I'd like to do these. And a lot of the times the like to, and some of them maybe even have to, I'm like, you know what? I am going to go for a bike ride with you to my 6-year-old. I'm like, we are going to go down to the library to my 12-year-old. She loves going down to the library. So
I texted you this like a week ago or something.
Okay.
A challenging thought for me was when you're going day to day, who's oh gosh, I gotta think of it. Do you know where I'm going with this?
I do.
It's like, who's listing your priorities for each day? Is it you or is it a third party, right? Or
are your priorities running your life, or are you running your priorities?
Something like that.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting thought because obviously you're speaking towards quality of life.
Yeah.
Right. Your quality of life is going to be better. What I found, because I'm a workaholic, just so you know, I find a lot of worth in what I do. And I'm young, and kind of all my buddies, all my surrounding people are the same way, and we just work all the time. However, I find myself far more productive when I take a day to go ride dirt bikes on the weekend, you know, and that's that's my sitting on the deck and reading a book is riding a dirt bike. But it's the same sort of thing where it's not only does it improve your quality of life, I think, but it also, when you're a workaholic like me, can help you be more productive and more efficient, and also maybe even a little bit more creative because you have to take those breaks.
Yeah. Yeah. I think remembering kind of what it is you're living for, it just feeds you. And when I was younger, it was, doing stupid things on a mountain bike.
Yeah.
And, with my buddies, we would literally go through not trails in the woods. And, this was before they were even had suspension and things like that, So, we were doing really dumb things, and that gave us the energy to go out and do all kinds of, crazy things. I mean, I would, the way I found out that I only need as much sleep as I did is that I used to hang out with a bunch of other, art geeks, and we would give ourselves challenges like, okay, in 30 minutes, we've got to make Georgia O'Keeffe painting. And, and like it's 3:00 in the morning, and you're finding whole new layers of creativity after you're running on, 26, 32, 48 hours of no sleep. And you're, just pulling these challenges that you've written 2 days ago, 3 days ago out of a hat, and, and you're staying up. And I would do stupid things like that. And it's pretty cool. Like, but at the same time, there's a time when you need to step away from, from the computer, or you need to step away from the whatever, and just remember why it is you're doing what you're doing. 'Cause if it's not allowing you to do that, then is it really a good thing in your life?
Yeah. When are your most productive hours in the day? Are you a night owl?
Early morning and late at night
Really?
are the most productive. So I will come up with a lot of lists of like, oh, here's what I'm going to do for like, a couple of things. Like I'm trying to be really active on, on social media, and I'm like, on LinkedIn, sending friend requests, typing out like a list of here's what I'm going to do this week, just all kinds of stuff late at night. And then I kind of get it out of my system. I crash, and then I wake up in the morning, take a walk with my dog is what I'm trying to do these days. I'm hoping that lasts. And then, I come back and grab a cup of coffee, and I just start kind of pouring out the creativity. And then what I do when I have those moments where I've got downtime, in between jobs and things like that, I'll pick one of those ideas up and I'll kind of run with it. And so, but I do things kind of cyclically. I have this list of kind of things that I should be doing, and it's like 8 things on there. And what I try to do is focus on one of them for like 2 weeks at a time. where I'm like, okay, I'm going to edit a whole bunch of videos, or basically make the shell of a whole bunch of videos. So I've got this series that I'm calling like 30 by 30, and it's where I'm finding videos online that don't have a voiceover. And so I'll take 30 seconds of the video with no voiceover, and then I'll write a voiceover for the other 30 seconds. And so you've got a video that's, basically it's like 59 seconds, just long enough so that it can go on Instagram.
Yeah.
And I will post it on, on all the social media so that it's got this. And so I'm still doing something creative. I'm doing like, some of the copy points are coming from the product's website or whatever. But I'm doing that. And so I'll make all those shells of that video. And then for the next 2 weeks, I'll check out my website and I'll be like, okay, is my SEO up to par? Are there any keywords that I need to do? And the reason why I do that is because I found that I worked one time for I swear it was like 6 months on SEO for my website. And I felt like I didn't get anywhere after the third week. Like it didn't get me farther along really than, and I spent all that time, researching and going through and then I was like, well, there's all this other stuff now that's piled up and now I've got to do this. So I just found that if I take a week, if it's done, cool. But the longest I will do is about 2 weeks on any of those kind of plans or, those business kind of things. Like I'll, look through like, okay, time to check out my insurance, time to check out, should I still be a sole proprietor or is it time to, become an LLC? Is it time to become a, an S Corp? And so I kind of break up my days like that. And that took about 2 years to figure out that was a valuable thing for me. Because I felt like I just was at the point where I was just throwing spaghetti at the wall because I said it was time to.
Right. You should do this, you should do that, whatever. You just focus on something primarily for a couple weeks.
Yeah. And so if you just have that kind of like chain of here's all of the things. And so it's just literally a Google Doc that, has a list of here's the things that I'm working on. And, social media is one of those things. And so I'll just, again, like I use a publishing tool to help me keep track of the ideas. And so I just throw them on there and then I work on them, when I have the time and then I put ideas, for other things onto, other Google documents and I'll link to them. And it's just this kind of way I have of kind of making it too more enjoyable, because one of the things I like about what I do is that I get to wear a lot of hats, but I kind of get to choose which hats I wear. And sometimes I also can choose maybe somebody else is going to wear that hat. I don't enjoy that one so much. So
that's a dream.
Yeah.
That's quite a bit of structure that you set up for yourself. Do you find yourself looking at that schedule of tasks and be like, I'm not feeling SEO right now, so we'll come back to that? Or are you disciplined to be like, well, I said I need to do this every 3 months, so that's what I need to work on?
I'll at least do a cursory glance at it.
Yeah.
And if I feel like, okay, everything seems like it's still dialed in. I've gone, now with like the SEO, I think it's been about 3 months since I've really made any big changes to that. Last time I spent a week on my website and it was half of it was making my header image like the right size and then working on, a couple of the colors that for some reason were showing up a different shade of red. Right. And I'm like, man, why this WordPress is not, doing this. And so that's kind of my next thing is to, to hire somebody to just kind of redo my whole template, cause I'm like, I don't want to do that. And it's nice to be able to make those choices sometimes of not wanting to do that. But a lot of that, I hired, 2 different people. One was, a coach for basically my just whole business, specifically in voiceover. And so that's his forte, that's his specialty. And so he really helped me to set up those ground rules for myself, but at the same time, they're my rules. So if I want to change them, I'm the boss, I'm the person who gets to decide it. And then I worked with another one who was more, specifically on like just the business side. So, there are like, I was talking about the insurances and some of the, legal other things that are in there. So those are in there too. And, it's good to have those people who you trust and who back you up and who are specialists and who, can fill in those details. If you're a creative person, it's good to have a details person helping you out. But again, if you're a details person, hire a creative person, really. You don't want to have a website that looks like a form letter. You don't want to have a video that is so rigid and instructional that, it's forgetting that maybe this could be a fun thing.
Right. So. Absolutely. For the work you're doing right now, do you have much creative say on the overall project?
For most of my clients these days, there's not a lot of creative that I'm doing. And so that's why I'm creating my own content. I find that that's one of the things that really is helping me to kind of check out on that, and not, I care greatly. I care immensely. The real in the real voice, I find is, it's the authenticity part. It's not like I'm the only, so I want to be that authentic person. So I make suggestions to a lot of clients. I will give them an alternate take. They're like, here's the production notes. Here's how we want it to sound. And I'll be like, no, this kept hitting me. And so I just thought I'd send this along to you, use it, trash it, whatever. It was fun to do it that way for me. And so, I think that that's one of the things that my clients know that they get from me too, is that, it's not going to be forceful. It's not going to be like, no, I'm going to refuse to work with you if you do, but I'll give them suggestions. I'll give them input. And I measure that, for each client, but, it's something that if I can't do it, I know I'm going to be able to do it for myself. So, and that's where social media is like a savior in some ways to me.
Yeah. Where do you find, not where, but how do you find clients right now, as you're doing your own thing? What does that look like?
So, a lot of people, so recently I've had people contact me from, the 30 by 30 series that I call it a series, but right now there's only one that's been released, although there's 3 others that are in the works. So one will be released this week, and then probably in another 2 weeks I'll release the next one, just so I don't exhaust all the material too quickly and give myself a break. Because so I do I get some people who are on LinkedIn. I've had some people on Instagram come through. I get a lot of referrals, so people that I've worked with will pass on my information to other people. I get not just referrals, but somebody will be like, hey, I heard this person, talking the other day that I've worked with before, saying that they need somebody. So I'll send you their email address. And it's, kind of cold calling or cold emailing. But, I do a little bit of that. I try to always know something about the person that I'm calling so that I,
yeah, right.
Especially if it's a phone call. There are casting sites where they'll say, we're looking for a person like this, send an audition or send a demo in. A lot of auditions. I do a lot of auditions. So there are sites that I have feeds to that they will post jobs to or other things. And so I will submit an audition. And, the good thing about that is it's practice. I also have a manager out there who, things have slowed down from what he's giving me, but, obviously a lot of things with the world right now have been slowing down over things. So, but I know he's still out there, working away, and, the reality is that it's my business and I control it. So, I have to get out there and I have to get myself in front of people, through all kinds of different ways. And so, one of the ways that I do that is education. So, I've joined a business networking group, and part of the requirements for that are doing a lot of education. And, at first, it's pretty rudimentary, like, networking is when you walk into a room and you talk to different people and, exchange cards, but, here's how to do it better, stuff. So, So I feel like you can always learn how to do things better. And I'm the person who sometimes is the voice in a video teaching people how to do things better. So I have to learn a lot about it too, you know? So.
Yeah, right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I actually got hired for a job. It was, you know, putting together this mechanical thing. And I'm like, well, I got to know how to do it inside and out to even make the video about it.
Right.
Which is kind of interesting. But so you're working from your own studio, which means, or what it sounds like, is you're able to work for people all over the place.
Yeah.
Do you have, do you work for a lot of clients outside of Vermont, or is it mostly Vermont, or a little bit here and there?
Mostly out of Vermont.
Yeah.
So yeah, most of my clients are not in even the New England area. So I focus a lot of my efforts. I'll just like pick a city where I know somebody and get a couple of intros. So I've done a lot of work in Washington, D.C. I've done a lot of work recently in Charlotte, North Carolina area. There was a pocket that I was working on in the Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas area. And then there were a couple of places out in Wyoming that I was doing for a little while. But I also did some security announcements for a park in Germany. So apparently they play, I think they said it was 5 languages. They have their security announcement.
Yeah.
So, you know, so, and it's everything from, you know, please no flash photography before the show. And, you know, sit back, relax, and, you know, make sure the aisles are kept clear. That kind of a thing to, you know, to the English as a second language. That was in China. I did some audio tours. So I think it was 18 different buildings in Japan. So I did an English version of the audio tour. I was one of those ones where I was, you know, very much kind of like, here's how you asked me to say it, but I'm also providing
the correct way,
you know, the way that if people are from, you know, the UK or America, this is how they're going to expect it. If English is their second language, or, you know, or another language that they speak, it wouldn't be a problem. But if it's their first language or primary language, this is how they're going to expect it to be said. So.
That's so cool. Those are cool opportunities.
Yeah. It's really, you know, because, you know, again, like, I guess I kind of like, you know, I like educating. You know, a lot of videos that I focused on for a while were what's called explainer videos. You know, so it's not really, it's more for like, you know, if you've bought this product and you don't know how to assemble it, you know, here's a video that's gonna help you through that process of, you know, but better than the IKEA directions. Kinda.
Yeah, sure. Do you mind to tell the story of how that Germany gig found you?
I was wondering that too.
So that was one of those sites where, you know, they just post like, here's a company that's looking for something.
Gotcha.
And if you know, feel like you meet these criteria, submit the audition to this person by this time. And so I did. And, you know, 4 weeks later, I get an email back being like, you're hired, you know.
Oh, great.
So, and
How
I'm
cool
like,
is that?
That's fantastic news. That's one of my favorite. The other one is you're paid. So
that's a good email to follow up with.
That's a wonderful email. Yeah. So I have those little alerts on my phone's on vibrate right now because I get a lot of alerts on my phone, you know, which are different sounds and things like that, you know, so, you know, I have a little cha-ching, you know.
So you have quote unquote color coded
So
messages.
You know, so certain apps give me different ringtones when I've got money in the bank. So,
Well, I've been learning a whole lot.
Yeah. It's
how are you doing over there?
Super entertaining and educational.
Well, yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Well, this is, again, as I said, going into this, I mean, this is something I know nothing about.
Yeah.
Me neither, really. I mean, we're not in the field, but it's kind of on the fringes of the creative industry. That's why we wanted to learn more about it.
Yeah, it really is. And you know, here's the weird thing is that every day, everywhere you go, you are hearing voiceovers. And it's something that people don't even realize. You know, you're standing on the platform waiting for subway and you're hearing a voiceover.
Yeah.
You know, and nowadays you're inside the train, you know, you're inside the subway it's not the person who's driving most of the time who's announcing the next stop. It's a voiceover. At the airport, there's security announcements. One of the longest running voiceover pieces that I have, I did in 1999, and somebody texted me about 6 months ago and said, "Oh my God, I just heard your voice," saying, "Please hold for the next available representative. If this is a medical emergency, please hang up and dial 911 or your local emergency number." And I recorded that in 1999.
Wow.
And so that's been running all this time. And I just, I keep saying to people, well, I hope nobody's still holding. So, that's quite a long time. But that's the other aspect of this, is that I really actually have fun. I really do enjoy this. And part of, the ridiculousness is like, I do some sports imaging, and literally, like as I was saying, like the Sunday. You can't use that for everything, but man, it's fun when you do. It really.
So you enjoy that sort of stuff?
Oh God, yeah. I think some of the most fun that I have is actually doing some of those sports things, because you just have complete license to be ridiculous. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of other places where you can be cheesy, and I enjoy those too. But yeah, I mean, literally, like if you hear somebody screaming in their house, it might be a voiceover talent. Like, don't just think I got to call the police. Like,
that's so funny. I was actually I just did a music video breakdown, and I said the same thing about music videos. It's like you can just be as weird and goofy and ridiculous as you want, and it's rules. Fine. And that's the avenue in filmmaking where you can have that.
Yeah. You can just come unleash completely,
right.
And you can have totally the wrong colors, splashed up in the background in an image, and they can be clashing, but
it's okay.
Works with what's going on.
But it works.
But do it.
Absolutely.
Roll with it. And I'll leave you with the words, because I feel like we're getting to the end here, of one of my favorite philosophers, and he said, "If we never did anything silly, nothing intelligent would ever get done." And I like to kind of live by that. Like sometimes there's the take that I don't send to the client, but it's right.
I love it, dude.
Made you feel good.
Yeah. I love it. How you doing over there?
Good.
Want to wrap up? I see wheels turning.
Yeah. He's thinking.
There's a couple of things, like lingering questions. Are you diligent to an alarm clock, or do you naturally wake up 4 hours later just ready to go?
So once I'm on, if I'm on a regular pattern, a regular schedule, I will typically wake up about 20, 30 minutes before my alarm goes off. And so, for example, a week ago, I was filling in on a morning show. One of the guys is on vacation, and in most markets, this doesn't happen, but they trust me. I have I'm not trying to take over the morning show. But I just filled in one time when somebody was sick, and I was in the building, and they were just like, "Cool, come back anytime." And so then they started saying like, "Hey, this person's on vacation next week. Can you come in?" And so to do that, I have to get up at 3:45 in the morning. And, so I can get up, I get some food ready, and I drive and am ready to go at 5 a.m., when the show starts. So that was last week. And so I was up at 3:45 in the morning every single day, except for Thursday and Friday, where I woke up 20 minutes before my alarm clock and was just ready to go, walk downstairs, So this week I've had my alarm set for, I think it's 6:30, and I've been waking up at, 6 every day. So it's just kind of, I still set the alarm because, if something, goes awry, or, like if I've pushed myself, or if I'm coming down with something, I might sleep a little bit longer. So I always just have it set to be safe.
Yeah.
Cause I hate being late, and I hate, being that guy who just like never showed up. Like I've tried not ever to be that guy, and, having twice is way too many times for me in my life. So
sounds like that nervous energy just keeps you going.
Yeah. It does. But I give myself a job, I give myself stuff to do, and, just keep myself occupied when I need to be. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, if people want to follow you or get in touch for a voiceover, how can they see your work?
Sure. So my website is therealvoice.com. And I'm at The Real Voice Mel on almost all social media. I think that maybe LinkedIn is a little bit different, but Mel Allen, and The Real Voice. And if you just type those words in anywhere, you'll probably find me. So.
What a pleasure, man. So nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's very nice meeting you guys too. I love what you're doing, and I can't wait to see more of the people that you have in here. So,
Heck yeah.
Awesome.
Same, man.
Well, thanks.
All right,
Thanks
cool.
for coming on the
Appreciate it.
show.
Thanks.